The cold evening breeze whispered through the streets. As Martha tightened the scarf around her frail neck, she clutched her old shopping bag, filled with a few essentials, and looked up at the towering apartment building in front of her. The flickering streetlight barely illuminated the worn-out steps leading to the entrance. With a deep breath, she started her slow, careful ascent, her weak legs trembling under her own weight. Just as she reached the first step, her foot slipped slightly, sending a jolt of panic through her chest. She gripped the railing, her fingers trembling, her breath shallow. It was just one flight of stairs. She had climbed it countless times before. But tonight, her body felt heavier than usual. From the side, a soft voice broke the silence. "Let me help you, ma'am." Martha turned her head to see a young woman wearing a faded uniform, holding a cleaning rag in one hand and a mop bucket in the other. Her dark hair was neatly pulled back, and her eyes carried a warmth that made Martha's own exhaustion feel a little lighter. "I can manage," Martha mumbled, not wanting to be a burden. The young woman smiled gently. "I know you can, but you don't have to do it alone." Before Martha could protest, the woman set her cleaning supplies down and offered her arm. Hesitant at first, Martha eventually accepted, resting her shaky hand on the woman's steady arm. Step by step, they moved forward together, the woman adjusting her pace to match Martha's slow, careful movements. By the time they reached the top, Martha's heart pounded from the effort. But there was also something else, a sense of relief. She turned to thank the woman, but before she could find the right words, the young cleaner simply smiled again and nodded, as if helping was the most natural thing in the world. "Take care of yourself," the woman said, before picking up her supplies and disappearing down the hall, back to her work. Martha watched her go, her heart swelling with gratitude. She had never seen the young woman before, but something about her felt familiar, as if she had known her in another life. That night, as Martha settled into bed, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had just crossed paths with someone truly special. She made a mental note to look for the cleaning lady again the next day, to properly thank her, maybe even learn her name. But when morning came, something happened that Martha never could have expected. The next morning, Martha woke up earlier than usual. The ache in her legs reminded her of last night's struggle, but more than that, her mind was fixed on the young woman who had helped her. She had meant to thank her properly, maybe even offer her a warm cup of tea. People like that, kind souls, who helped without expecting anything in return, were rare. Slowly she got dressed, wrapping her old cardigan around her shoulders before stepping out of her small apartment. The hallway was quiet, with only the distant hum of life beyond the closed doors. She made her way down to the lobby, hoping to catch a glimpse of the cleaning lady. But as she reached the bottom of the stairs, something felt off. The cleaning supplies that were usually tucked neatly in the corner were gone. The mop, the bucket, the small cart of cleaning rags, missing. Martha frowned, glancing around. The building's floors were dull. The air carried the faint scent of dust, and for the first time in a long while, she noticed the absence of that freshly cleaned scent she had taken for granted. She approached the front desk, where Mr. Alvarez, the old doorman, was sipping his morning coffee. "Excuse me, do you know where the cleaning lady is? The young woman from last night?" Martha asked, her voice laced with curiosity. Mr. Alvarez set his cup down, squinting as if trying to recall something. "Cleaning lady," he muttered. "We don't have one working here anymore." "Haven't for weeks." Martha's brows knitted together. That didn't make sense. "But I saw her last night. She helped me up the stairs." The old doorman shook his head. "You must be mistaken, ma'am. The last cleaner left a month ago. Management hasn't hired anyone new yet. A strange chill ran down Martha's spine. That couldn't be right. She had felt the warmth of the woman's arm, the steadiness of her grip. It wasn't a dream. It was real. Confused but unwilling to let it go, Martha sat in the lobby while watching the front door, hoping to see the young woman walk in. But the morning passed, and she never came. The following days were no different. Every evening, Martha peeked down the hallway, checking for any sign of the woman, but she never appeared. She asked a few neighbors, even described her to one of the younger tenants, but no one seemed to know who she was talking about. Then, one evening, just as she was about to give up, something strange happened. She was walking past the old bulletin board near the lobby when a small faded newspaper clipping caught her eye. It was half torn, yellowed with time, tucked behind some outdated notices. Something about it made her stop. Gently, she pulled it free and read the headline. Tragic accident. Young woman falls while helping tenant. Martha's breath hitched as her eyes scanned the article. It told the story of a young cleaning woman who had worked in the building years ago. One stormy night, she had seen an elderly tenant struggling with the stairs and rushed to help, but in the process, she had slipped, tumbling down the staircase. The injuries had been severe, and despite efforts to save her, she had passed away. Martha's fingers trembled as she stared at the small, grainy photo printed beneath the text. It was her, the young woman who had helped her just days ago. A cold shiver ran through her. But strangely, there was no fear in her heart, just a deep, overwhelming sadness. The woman hadn't just disappeared. She had never been there in the first place. Or had she? Martha looked toward the staircase, her thoughts racing. Had she been saved by a memory, a lingering kindness that refused to fade, even in death? She didn't know the answer. But one thing was certain. Some acts of kindness never truly disappear. Martha stood frozen, the faded newspaper clipping trembling in her hands. The young woman in the picture, there was no doubt about it, was the same one who had helped her just days ago. But how was that possible? Her mind spun, searching for some kind of explanation. Maybe she was mistaken. Maybe it was just someone who looked similar. But deep down, she knew. The warmth of the young woman's arm, the kindness in her eyes. It wasn't something she could have imagined. It was real. Taking a deep breath, she carefully placed the newspaper clipping back where she had found it, as if disturbing it too much would erase the presence of the woman forever. She turned toward the staircase, the very one where the tragedy had happened, and for the first time, she saw it differently. It wasn't just an old, creaky set of steps. It was a place where someone had once shown kindness, where someone had given their last moments helping another. That night, Martha couldn't sleep. The weight of what she had discovered settled in her chest, not as fear, but as a deep, aching sorrow. She thought about the young woman's life, about how she had left the world too soon, and yet, somehow, she was still here, still helping, still watching over others. The next day, Martha made a quiet decision. She went to the small flower shop down the street and bought a single white lily. Slowly, carefully, she climbed down the same steps where the woman had once fallen. At the bottom, she knelt and placed the flower near the base of the railing. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice soft but full of emotion. For a moment, nothing happened. The air was still, the building silent. But then, just as she turned to leave, a gentle warmth passed through her. A feeling, a presence, something unspoken but undeniable. It was as if, for just a second, someone was standing beside her. Martha smiled, her heart lighter than it had been in years. She didn't need to see the young woman again to know she was there. Some kindness never fades. Some spirits never truly leave. As she made her way back up the stairs, the climb didn't feel so difficult anymore.